Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Let us do another edition of Cliff Dwellers. So let me just grab the link here and we will post it for everyone. So I'm just going to post it in a couple places and then we will jump in. Okay. So we recently hit an interesting milestone. So we discussed for a while that we likely will not be able to keep pace with cycle 3, and I believe we have now fallen below cycle 3, which we always said was likely going to happen. So if you compare the two cycles now, you can see that in fact, if you measure it from the wick, right? Daily closes might be slightly different. If you measure it from the wick, we are behind cycle 3, because to be on pace with cycle 3, we would need to be above 50k at this point. Now, cycle 3 did have a drop in the summer, so we could go down to 37k by June and still actually be on par with cycle 3. But again, my contention is that we will not be able to keep pace with cycle 3, right? That's the argument, is that we will not be able to keep pace with it, and ultimately we will fall below it and not go to 300k this year. Like, I don't think we're going to go to 300k this year. So it looks like it might be coming true, but I don't think we can definitively say. I don't think we can definitively say yet if that's the case, because again, cycle 3 had a pretty significant drop that would have taken us down to 37k as normalized from the bottom, and it still would have gone back up to 101k. This is all sort of normalized from each market cycle bottom. So at this point, right at this point, I would say, with Bitcoin dropping here, we're sort of testing the prior local top of January, so around 42k, about, okay, in that area. You can see that if we shift the line to be right there, so that's basically what we just tested a few minutes ago, right? So that local top there, and then we just had a wick down to it. So it'll be interesting to see if this provides any level of support or not. Remember, I've always contended that this cycle should take longer than the last one. Okay, so if someone's telling you 300k by September, recognize that it's likely not going to happen. Okay, 300k by September is a pipe dream, as far as I'm concerned. A pipe dream, not going to happen. The amount of capital it would take to get us to 300k by September would be somewhat ridiculous, and I just don't think it's going to happen. Again, I'm looking for a cycle peak somewhere between 1 to 200k, and again, that doesn't even have to happen this year. I think it could happen next year. It doesn't have to happen in 2021. Now, what's interesting is if you overlay the slow bleed from 2019. Okay, so if you overlay the slow bleed from 2019, and then just kind of overlay it, there are some similarities. So you might say, well, I mean, could we do something like that? Of course we could, right? Of course we could. The idea that we have to go straight up is not, it's not really founded on anything that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, there can be periods where we go down for a while. So what I would say, and we discussed the implication, right, of a brief bear market before continuing up later on in the cycle, kind of like 2019, right? We came up, we sort of had this bear market here, came up again. Maybe we're going to have another brief bear market before continuing higher. But my point is, in the grand scheme of the cycle, like, this is fine. And maybe we're going to have a reaccumulation range. And what I will tell you now, because I know if we do continue to drop, which there's a good chance we do, a lot of people are going to be scared, right? A lot of people are going to be scared, and I think that's natural. But I will tell you, there's a good chance that in the event of a dump, institutions would be loading up for what I would consider to be an inevitable move to $100,000 Bitcoin. Again, I don't think that necessarily has to happen this year, but I will say that I think if we are getting sort of a reaccumulation zone, if we draw the prior all-time high, so it was basically at 20K. That, I mean, I don't know that we're ever going to go to those levels again. We might, right? We might, but this could be sort of a reaccumulation zone for a move later on to $100,000 to $200,000 Bitcoin is what I would think. $100,000 to $200,000. This might be a reaccumulation zone for Bitcoin. We had all these accumulation zones for Ethereum that we discussed, and you might wonder, well, why had we not discussed them for Bitcoin? Well, we did for Bitcoin. It was just a while ago. And the last time I bought Bitcoin was at $12,000. I mean, honestly, the last time I bought Bitcoin was at like $12,000. If we're looking in this range here, I think this would be an accumulation range, a reaccumulation range for Bitcoin for the duration of the market cycle. Now, you might say, well, what would be the worst case scenario, right? What would be the worst case scenario that Ben could imagine, right? And remember, my imagination does not always come true. In fact, many times what I might imagine might happen does not happen. I mean, if you had asked me, would Bitcoin go to 64K by April? If you had said that back in October, I would have said, hell no. Okay, so remember, what I can imagine is not necessarily what plays out. But if you were to ask me, Ben, what would you envision being like the worst case scenario for the market cycle? I'll tell you what I would envision. Okay, so worst case scenario, I mean absolute worst case scenario for Bitcoin, in my opinion, and maybe my fairly naive, ignorant opinion, would be back to the 200-week SMA. Now, some of you may say, well, the 200-week SMA is pretty low right now, and I don't think we're gonna go there anytime soon, even if we were to go there. My point is, worst case scenario, whether you ask me this year, a year ago, next year, 5 years from now, whenever it may be, I would probably say the 200-week SMA. We did a video on this, like 3 weeks ago, when we said what's the worst case scenario, and I said the 200-week SMA. Where is the 200-week SMA, right? Where is it? Well, where it is right now is somewhat irrelevant, because where it is right now is not where we would meet it, okay? Let me give you an example. For instance, in 2019, when Bitcoin hit 14K, the 200-week moving average was at 38.11, okay? But let's see, it was at 3,900. But by the time we held it, more or less on the weekly time frame, it was already at 54.55. So right now, the 200-week moving average is at 12.6K. I personally don't think Bitcoin has any chance at all to ever go back to $12,000. Like, basically zero chance. I won't say zero, maybe like 0.1% chance that it ever goes back to $12,000. But that's not the point, right? The point is not, hey, will it ever go back to $12,000? So could it go back to the 200-week estimate? And the idea is, well, if this keeps going up, okay, so imagine this keeps going up like this, and it does something like that. That would be the worst case scenario. Okay, again, the chances that this happens, I think, are relatively low. Maybe like 20 to 30%, maybe like 20% chance of happening. So it's probably not going to happen. My guess is that we probably find support somewhere higher than that. and we're able to build off that. I mean, it could be like the 50-week moving average, which is moving up a lot quicker. There's also the 100-week moving average. You can see we've obviously, broke below the 20-week. So these would be the obvious moving averages to look at. So when I say what would be the worst case scenario, I certainly don't mean it has to happen. I just mean that would be the worst case scenario that I could possibly envision. Now, what I think, again, is that if we were to go to that level, which is a big if, that would be the time to really load up if you haven't already loaded up. And it would be a fairly opportunistic time for people to reload in the event that they want to ride Bitcoin up to 100K if they don't have a current Bitcoin position. So that would be the worst case scenario. Like that, I think that would be the worst case scenario. And the way that we would get there, I really don't know. But I mean, again, if you just took a bar pattern from say 2019 and overlaid it, it is somewhat interesting because it would more or less correspond. I mean, if you take it to the top there, look at that. Like if you just overlay the peak there of 2019 to 2021, and it did something similar, and it came down like this, and it did that, and we had another capitulation, which we probably wouldn't have because we're not having, that was like a pandemic capitulation, but that would actually correspond to the 200-week moving average by the end of the year, which is exactly when everyone thinks Bitcoin should be having its market cycle peak, is by the end of the year. But I've always told you guys, again, I don't think we're going to go back to that level, but I'm just telling you worst case scenario. I've always told you guys that I do think this cycle will be longer than the last one, which was longer than the one before, which was longer than the one before. And one thing to consider is what if we get some type of triple peak cycle, or double peak if you don't want to include this one, but where we have sort of these major peaks, okay? Major peaks, 1, 2, maybe we come back down for a while and then go back up and then have a third one. Okay, something like that. Well, what if it's like a triple peak cycle where we, instead of having these, methodical tests of the 20-week SMA like last cycle, we have an impulsive move up followed by a brief bear market, another impulsive move up followed by a brief bear market, and then another impulsive move up. And then at that point, if we did something like that, then I would assume it would be a much longer bear market at that point. That's just sort of some of the things I'd be looking for. Now, with that said, even if Bitcoin does go down, there's still going to be times when it can rally back up. I mean, if you look at the 2-week candles, look at the 2-week candles here. Bitcoin's down 25%. The last time Bitcoin was down 25% in 2 weeks, does anyone know when that was? I guess if you take it from the top of the wick here, but March of 2020, in fact, it was down 37% in 2 weeks. And right now we're down about 25% in 2 weeks. So that was the last time we've seen, a 2-week candle that was, sort of at this level, I guess. Sorry, it looks like Gavin. It looks like we have some spammers there, so let me just get rid of them. But anyways, that would sort of be like the worst case scenario, I guess. But anyways, these are 2-week candles. Let me get rid of these moving averages because those moving averages don't really mean anything. These are 2-week candles. If you look at monthly candles, so if we look at monthly candles, you can see that we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 greens in a row, 2 reds, and I really, I mean, if you think about it, like we're literally just dumping to the price so far that we, for the first time, reached in February of 2021. So not a huge dump at this point. Obviously, if we come back down here, then it's really going to have people questioning things. But that's when I start buying again. Okay, I mean, that's when I would start buying again. And again, I haven't bought Bitcoin since $12,000, which again, some people give me a hard time about. But it does sort of make navigating dips a little bit easier. If you're new to the market, I would remind you that the people that stick around with Bitcoin over the long haul are the people that generally do the best. So, if you're worried, remember that the 10-year ROI of Bitcoin tends to be really, really good. If you look at the history, the 10-year or the 4-year ROI is basically always above 10x, except for a few times. I don't think it will maintain that. I don't think in 4 years from 64K, I doubt in 4 years the price is $640,000. But I mean, it just gives you an idea that the 4-year ROI with Bitcoin has historically been really, really good. So something to keep in mind. Again, this is not a day trading game, especially if you're buying into the pump. This is what I warn people about: is buying into the pump is a dangerous thing. You typically want to buy in a bear market, right? That's when you want to buy, because then at some point you inevitably come out of the bear market, and then you have the most to gain. Okay, you have the most to gain. So if you're looking at this right now, like, oh my gosh, what the hell do I do? Remember that you need to have some level of resolve, and also recognize that the data has always suggested that we were ahead of schedule. I've been saying that for 6 months, or maybe not 6 months, but maybe like 4 months. I've been saying it for 4 months that we were ahead of schedule. Got a lot of flack for it because people just said, to hell with the data. But again, the data has always suggested that we were ahead of schedule for this market cycle. So getting a correction is not that big of a deal, in my opinion, right? In my opinion, it's not that big of a deal. Now, again, if you're leverage trading, I can't help you with that. I mean, I don't promote leverage trading. I think it's too risky. I think crypto's already volatile enough that you're already essentially trading a lot of volatility. I don't think leverage trading is worth it because of the opportunity cost on losing crypto. So again, that's why we don't have any affiliate links here on spamming leverage trading exchanges. So again, if you're leverage trading, that's a different story because maybe you actually are getting liquidated. But again, this channel does not and will not ever promote leverage trading because it's too damn risky and the opportunity cost is so high. Your argument might be, well, the opportunity cost, if I make crypto doing it, then I'm going to gain a lot more later on. But again, I think a lot of people lose money leverage trading, and so I would say leverage trading is generally not a good idea, especially for the average retail investor. And so I would say, as long as you're, if you have, say, like a buy and hold mentality, a DCA mentality, a buy the dip mentality, or a buy the bear market mentality, I don't really think these guys are worried. If you're leverage trading and you're overextended, then yeah, maybe you're a little bit more worried. But hopefully it's a lesson to maybe not do that as much and not click on those affiliate links that are spammed in a lot of different channels. So let's see what happens here. I mean, we're at 43.4. If we look at I was looking at this earlier. So if you look at the daily RSI here, it has been coming down. So if you look at, let me make this so you guys can see it. So yellow. So I mean, you can see that it's been losing steam for a while here, right? Generally, the daily RSI has been moving down over the last, basically since January. Each subsequent move is getting less and less. We already knew that, right? We already discussed that. We said that, these moves into price discovery weren't that substantial, from 58K to 61K to 64K, not that substantial. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, we could go down a little bit more, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming days we got some type of like relief rally where we come back up for a little bit, because we have been falling pretty hard here. If you look at say the last since May 10th, so 6 days ago, the price has fallen about 27%. So I would not really be surprised if we got some type of relief rally here in the next few days. Looking at where we could be here, just an idea, right? I mean, I don't really know because I'm not a day trader. I'll leave that to the day trading channels, of course. I mean, I can't even really draw the lines that well to make them look good, but you get the idea, right? I mean, I would not be surprised if we got it. Now, I'm not going to trade that. I'm not going to trade the idea of a relief rally, but I certainly would not be surprised if it came. Okay, I would not be surprised if it came. I also wouldn't be surprised if we just dropped like a rock either. I mean, here we are. We're right here at these prior levels. You can see that we've sort of dropped below this level, and from there we had moved up relatively quickly back in January and February. We sort of just breached that area, so that's where we currently are. There's not really a whole lot of precedent in the past for this level except for this wick here, so maybe we'll see a bounce. I think 42K is an area to look out for. Again, that being the prior local top. By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. But definitely hit the subscribe button. Let's go for 400,000 subscribers. Okay, let's go for 400,000 subscribers. And remember, if you want to join the premium list, you can check out the sale. You can find a link to that in the description below. I'll also post it in the comments if you want to know how I'm navigating these markets. So from here, we have to be a little bit cautious, right? A little bit cautious. Remember, have your mindset on the market cycle, like the whole market cycle. The idea that a lot of data suggests we're going to go to 100 to 200K this market cycle. Again, I think the 300K predictions are a little bit far-fetched, and we're not even going to come close to 300K. But I know maybe though that's a good thing, because in order to sell my Bitcoin at 150K one day, I need people to believe it's going to go to 300K. But regardless, let's see if we get a relief rally in the next few days. And if we do, it might make people think that this was just a buy the dip moment. I would contend there's still a decent chance that even if we got a relief rally, we could still come down. Okay, so don't necessarily be fooled by a relief rally. I think it's possible that we get one. I mean, if you just look at this move back down here, back up, back down, I wouldn't be necessarily that surprised if we move back up and then people sort of felt good again before another pull back down. There's also a lot of stuff going on crypto Twitter and stuff. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys, but it's pretty ridiculous with all the stuff going around. What I'm thinking, from a fundamental perspective, okay, and I don't really talk about fundamentals a whole lot, but I talked about it in one of the recent videos. I would say, there's a lot of institutions that probably want to get in on this Bitcoin thing, right? That probably also didn't want to be the schmuck buying up here, okay? If you're Amazon or Apple or Facebook, do you really want to be that guy buying at these levels? Probably not. And so if they are sort of just waiting for their opportunity, this would be an opportunity for them, okay? Because my guess is that there are probably a lot of institutions that want to get in. They want to get in, but they want to get in for cheaper than a $64,000 Bitcoin. And if they can get it for like 30K or 40K or even 20K, if they can get it maybe between 20 to 40K in that, let's say they get it for somewhere in that range, like 20 to 40K or something. No, that's 30 to 40, but imagine they can get it somewhere between 20 to 40K. I think this is a much more attractive option for a lot of institutions rather than FOMOing in after it's up 20x in 14 months. So in terms of the grand scheme of this cycle, what I would see is if we do in fact get a slow bleed like 2019, this is where I would consider to be the accumulation zone, the reaccumulation zone for Bitcoin for the market cycle. Like, not an overvaluation accumulation zone, just in general a major reaccumulation zone of Bitcoin for the market cycle, if in fact we are going to get that bleed to those levels. Okay, so keep that in mind. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. There's a good chance it doesn't. We could always just chop sideways for a while and then just figure out what's what and then move up. So let's not negate that either. I just know, I know that a lot of people are fearful right now, and I want you to realize that, hey, we've been going up for a long time. If we pull back for a little while, it should just represent an opportunity and not something that you need to get super upset about. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and click the bell icon to turn on alerts. Let's take a look at our bull market support band, because we did in fact close above it. Okay, we did close above it. The close was at the 21-week EMA. So we closed above the 21-week EMA, not above the 20-week SMA. So we just closed right above it. This so far looks pretty bearish. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. So far this looks pretty bearish. Again, we said that this is what was likely going to happen. Not necessarily a fall below it, but we did speculate that maybe we're too far gone to hold it. Similar to 2019, because we had the cross of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA there. We had the cross here. We said, hey, a few weeks from now, we're probably going to test it. If history is any indication, it was a similar type move, and we're unable to hold it, and we get a slow bleed for a while. This would probably represent an opportunity. Now, you might be wondering, well, what if we do get a brief bear market? What could that look like? And I think one way to look at that is, in general, when I think about Bitcoin and being in a bull market or being in a bear market, I think about, are we above the 20-week or are we below the 20-week? You'll recognize that when we're below the 20-week, everyone gets super bearish, right? No matter what happens, everyone's super bearish. Even though 43K would have been a dream come true just a few months ago. I mean, if you had told us back in December of 2020 that people were going to be upset about a $40,000 Bitcoin in a few months, a lot of people would have been like, what? You're talking about a 2x in a few months and people are going to be upset about that? It's all about the 20-week. The 20-week governs sentiment, because basically people have this mentality of, all right, well, what's been going on over the last 5 months or so, because that's sort of like what we remember recently. If we're below the average of those levels, then people start to get very bearish. So when we're below the 20-week, we're sort of in these bearish waters. When we're above the 20-week, we're in bullish waters. And so if you want my take on it, if you look at the last time we dropped below the 20-week until the next test of the 20-week coming back down to it, again, it was about 6 months. And then from here to here, it was about 6 months. So if we drop below it and hold it, we haven't really officially dropped below the bull market support band yet, because we haven't had a weekly close both below the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, just below the 20-week SMA so far. But if it were to play out like that, and we had about, let's say 6 months or something, you could get something like that, and then it comes down and finds support at like the 50-week SMA or something, and then comes back above the 20-week, and then we retest the 20-week, and then continue on. That would sort of be what I could envision as a brief bear market looking like, in the event of a continued dump. Regardless, I think that in the grand scheme of the cycle, Bitcoin is doing what we said it was going to do, and that was ultimately fall behind cycle 3. Again, people don't like to, a lot of times people don't really like it when I say it, but again, it doesn't change the fact that I should say it, in the sense that, hey, we're probably not going to keep pace with cycle 3. Now you can see we have in fact fallen below it, but hey, we could go down to 37K by, in a few weeks and still be on track, because we had a dump in cycle 3 at that point. Now, to keep pace with cycle 3, we're going to need to go to 100K by July. So if you think, and again, I could be wrong, okay, I could be wrong. I've been wrong about things before. Just ask my wife, right? I've been wrong about things. If you think that 100, or if you think that we're going to go to 300K by the end of the year, you probably need to be looking to see, are we at 100K by this summer? Okay, is Bitcoin going to be 100K by this summer? And if it is, then maybe you're right? Maybe we are on track for what you think. But we're not there yet, and I think the chances we go to 100K by July are not exactly the highest, right? I don't think they're necessarily the highest probability that we go to that level. But again, I've been wrong before. I can be wrong again. I mean, I bought XRP right before the SEC news came out. So I'll leave it to you as a thought exercise. Why that was a bad decision. I mean, obviously XRP has done okay since then, but again, the opportunity cost on that trade was pretty significant. What's somewhat interesting though is if you look at the Tesla chart, Tesla was in a pretty big bull market, had the cross of the 20-week estimate, the 21-week EMA, and then went below it, sort of flirted with it for a while, then had a pump back up to the 20-week, and then now is dumping. And we've sort of seen it, Bitcoin lagging behind Tesla a little bit. So something, if it did something like that, then it might mean testing these levels for a few weeks, maybe then going back up and then coming back down. I don't really know. That might be something to keep an eye on if we stay close to the bull market support band. Yeah, I mean, everyone talks about Elon Musk, and guys, at the end of the day, Bitcoin should not be dependent on what one person tweets, okay? And as I've said before, I don't think that it's just Elon affecting the markets. I think, as I've said for months now, that we were ahead of schedule. Bitcoin was more extended than it probably should have been to hold the line, and that coming back down for a while gives us a new opportunity to potentially reinvest as we hopefully then trend back up later on. So the whole saga with that stuff is just kind of ridiculous in my opinion. I mean, to go from purchasing $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, putting Bitcoin in your Twitter bio, accepting Bitcoin for payment on Teslas, and then kind of retracting some of that seems a little bit ridiculous to me. And so I think there are probably other people that might have a little bit better perspective on crypto than someone who's constantly flip-flopping where they stand and also promoting meme coins every single day. Again, I'll let Elon do what he wants to do, but if you're following Bitcoin, Elon's probably not the guy to guide you through to guide you through that. There's plenty of other thought leaders in this. I'm not talking about myself. I just talk about the price, right? There's plenty of other thought leaders that I think would be better to follow. I mean, Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategy, like he would probably be a better voice to follow than Elon Musk, who's basically flip-flopping whether Bitcoin's a good or a bad thing every couple of months. Okay. And I would say, with regards to Elon, and he put out a tweet recently saying that like he knows how cash works because he created PayPal. Well, I'm not even going to get into some of the nuances of that, but hey, just because you're an expert in one industry does not mean you're an expert in another, right? Just because you know how to make electric cars. By the way, I'm a pretty big supporter historically in Elon Musk, right? I believe in betting on people. That's the reason why I have the crypto projects that I have. I believe in betting on people, and I've had Tesla for a long time. Like we don't talk about equities that much on this channel, but I've held Tesla for a long time, and I actually do believe Elon Musk is a good guy to bet on for electric cars, for space travel. For crypto, Dogecoin pumping, I don't know. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. What makes you an expert in one industry does not make you an expert in another industry. So, just because you think you understand money doesn't mean you're an expert at cryptography. Okay, there's a big difference between knowing how cash works and knowing how cryptography works. Okay, and so I have degrees. And I'm smart enough to know that there's a lot of subjects that if you ask me about, I'm going to have no clue, and I'll defer to someone else. So just because you have a successful business in one industry does not mean you know how to navigate a different one. It doesn't mean you don't, right? It doesn't mean you don't. But I don't think someone should just say, "Hey, I created PayPal, therefore I understand how cryptography works." There's a huge disconnect there. But again, I like Elon Musk for electric cars and for space travel. For cryptocurrencies, no thank you, right? No thank you for cryptocurrencies. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out with something in a few months to quote unquote solve some issues that he has created in his mind, right? Like the whole, energy consumption stuff and all that stuff. But regardless, I think that people are overreacting to what he's tweeting, and people just need to get back to cryptocurrency. Now, what's interesting to me is, Tesla has bought Bitcoin. MicroStrategy has bought Bitcoin. Okay. By the way, I really like Michael Saylor. Okay, I really do. I think he's great. He's probably the leader that Bitcoin needs for institutions. Not Elon Musk. Michael Saylor, I think, is probably a better leader there. But if I'm being honest, I'd never even heard of MicroStrategy before they bought Bitcoin. How many of you guys had heard of MicroStrategy before they bought Bitcoin? I hadn't heard of it. Maybe you had. Maybe you're plugged in more with that industry than I am. I personally never heard of MicroStrategy before they started buying Bitcoin. That doesn't mean they're not a good company. It just means I didn't know who they were. So what I would say though is let's talk about Apple buying Bitcoin, right? Let's talk about Facebook buying Bitcoin or BlackRock. Like these, we want bigger retail or bigger institutions, coming in and buying Bitcoin. And if we do get a little nice correction over here, that will provide the opportunity that I would think that these other institutions might be waiting for if they're not already in it. So again, huge props to Michael Saylor for buying Bitcoin, and I know they're up a lot right now on their positions. But again, we also want other people to come into the space, and I do think that Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy are sort of paving the way for these other larger institutions to come into the space. So this is I think that would be a better direction to follow, not the whole Elon Musk flip-flopping what he thinks about Bitcoin every 2 to 3 months. And again, what I said before, his reasoning for no longer accepting Bitcoin as payment because of energy concerns, he would have had that information months ago when he first started accepting Bitcoin in the first place. So why did he change his mind? That's what makes me think something else is going on. And maybe he's playing chess, right? Maybe he's playing chess with us, and there's something else going on. And only later on we'll fully understand what's going on. But we'll see, right? We'll see about that. By the way, if you guys like the content, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. Glad to see we have almost 10,000 people viewing. Definitely subscribe if you're new here. Remember, we do have a Telegram channel with over 38,000 people. If you're looking for a chat room, I would say check it out. Remember, I will not message you first, but I just posted it there in the chat if you guys want to check it out. If you want access to the premium content, remember to check out the sale we're having. I'll post that in the description below, or in the comments. You can find it in the description below as well. We also got those shirts you guys were asking for. So if you guys want to check it out, we got the What's a Few Trillion Among Friends shirts store.intothecryptoverse.com. All right, what else do you guys want to talk about? We've been talking about Bitcoin for a while now. Here's ADA. ADA's doing really well. ADA's like what dip? It's still chilling above $2. So I honestly don't know what the hell ADA's doing, but I'm not going to complain. Definitely not going to complain. The daily candles here just still look absolutely ridiculous. So ADA looks really good. ADA continues to look really good. Ethereum, Ether, Bitcoin. Ether USD is now down to 3,300. Okay, so it's taken a bit of a hit here. Let's take a look. So from the top, it's bled about 24%. If we look at this move here, this was about a 35% drop. I think it's more important, to look at Ether, Bitcoin. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, if Bitcoin is unable to get back above here, okay, so if we get a relief rally and we're able to come back above the bull market support band in the next few days, okay, I think Ether Bitcoin can continue to move up. Okay, I think it can continue to move up if we get that rally. If we get that rally. On the other hand, if Bitcoin just continues to drop week over week, then my guess is that it's more likely it would be more likely for this to come down some. Okay, that's my guess. So again, I'll say it again. If Bitcoin gets a relief rally and we move back up above the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA, then I think Ether Bitcoin can continue to do well. If, on the other hand, Bitcoin continues to bleed, then I think it's more likely that Ether will bleed against Bitcoin. That is where I stand on Ethereum right now. I mean, the Ether Bitcoin valuation is still relatively good at 0.076. So if you're just trading Ether back to Bitcoin or Bitcoin back to Ether, it still looks relatively good over the last few days. I mean, to put this into perspective, the first time that the Ether Bitcoin valuation hit this in this cycle was on May 12th. Or only a few days later. Okay, we had gone to these levels in the last cycle, but the very first time that we hit these levels was only a few days ago. So I wouldn't necessarily be that worried. But again, if Bitcoin continues to bleed, then it's more likely that Ether Bitcoin continues to bleed. If we get that little rally here in the short term, which I definitely would not be surprised if we got, then I think Ether Bitcoin can probably continue to move up. So that's where I stand on Ethereum. Yeah, someone says, I mean, maybe you're right, but someone says Bitcoin's going to bleed, but Ether Bitcoin will keep going up. Maybe you're right. I would, again, the data would suggest you're going to be wrong. But remember, I mean, there's always a first time for everything. But the data suggests, historically speaking, when Bitcoin goes below the 20-week SMA and continues to go down. So if we do something like that, it's more likely than not that the Ether Bitcoin valuation goes down. That's what the data suggests. Now, of course, fundamental stuff or other reasons, that's a different story. And I'm just telling you what the data says. I'm the messenger of the data, right? If you don't like what I'm saying, don't take it up with me. Take it up with the data. And there's a first time for everything. Ether Bitcoin could go up even if Bitcoin continues to bleed. It just doesn't tend to happen. But just because it doesn't tend to happen doesn't mean it can't. It just means it doesn't tend to happen. So I would say it would be nice. What I think would be nice is if Bitcoin could have a little rally, and hopefully then we could see the Ether Bitcoin valuation continue to make a move. So far the local top was at 0.0823 or so, 0.0823. So, but we'll see. I mean, Ether right now is at 33.32. The bull market support band for Ethereum is all the way down at 2080. 2080 to 2171. So it's a long ways off the bull market support band for Ethereum. And Bitcoin just broke down below its bull market support band. Why don't we take a quick look here at Link Bitcoin? Because Link Bitcoin, we said that if Bitcoin dumps below the 20-week, Link can come down in the short term, but it still could move up later if Bitcoin sort of stabilizes. So again, it looks like it has pulled back a little bit. We're back down to 85,000 Satoshis. The short-term top was around 95,000 Satoshis, so we're not that far below those levels. We are sort of slowly moving up here. Obviously, if Bitcoin continues to dump, there's a good chance Link USD is going to continue to dump. By the way, make sure you guys subscribe. I don't even know what we're at. Let's see. 397,000 subscribers. So let's go for 398,000 subscribers. ADA looks great. I mean, ADA Bitcoin. Let's check out ADA Bitcoin here. Look at these. These are daily candles here. So yeah, ADA against Bitcoin still looks relatively strong. I mean, it's chilling at like 213. I imagine ADA's still up on the week, actually. Let's take a look at this. Look at this. On the week, Bitcoin's down 27%. ADA's up 21%. So, I mean, look at this. ADA's the only one that's up, basically. Solana. So if you had Solana, you're up 3.37% on the week. Matic is up 71% on the week. But in the top 10, ADA is the only one that's up on the week, and it's sitting at 21%. Bitcoin's down 26%, Ethereum's down 19%, Binance Coin down 24%. Binance Coin better watch out, because at this rate, it's not going to take too much longer before ADA flips it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see ADA flip it. I'm certainly happy to see ADA flip Doge. I also wouldn't mind seeing ADA flip BNB. They're not that far apart. All right. Well, I mean, it looks like since we came on stream, the dump has temporarily subsided. So we haven't really done much here since we came on stream. But again, I would say, hey guys, business as usual. If anything, we were ahead of schedule. I would keep an eye on this level, because we did bounce from this level not too long ago, back in February. This was a place we bounced off of. So that's why I'm saying maybe we'll get a relief rally. Maybe we'll get a relief rally and we'll bounce back up for a while. But I think we need to be patient on that, because there's obviously no guarantees. I'm just looking at the fact that we bounced off of that level back in February, which more or less corresponded closely to the prior local top back in January. Someone says I can't get off stream, your portfolio can't afford it. Hey guys, I'll tell you this, if we go into a brief bear market, we'll just be playing chess. We'll just be playing chess until we get back into a bull market, right? You know what I would say? I would say this. Let me tell you this. If we get a correction larger than if we get, like, say, a big correction, that could present a timely opportunity for people who sort of feel like they missed out on a coin. That would present the opportunity, because, in a bull market, everyone always says, oh, I wish I bought this coin. These people that bought in the bear market are so lucky. Remember, buying in the bear market, it's not necessarily easy. I mean, it is if you have the resolve to know where Bitcoin and crypto's headed in general, which again for me is probably around $10 trillion plus or minus a few trillion, right? What's a few $1 trillion among friends? That's where I generally see it heading. But, it's easy to say in a bull market you wish you bought at the lower prices. It's a much different thing to actually do it. Okay, so the people that do it stand to gain the most in the long term. The people that don't do it and they just come back on whenever it's being pumped on CNBC again, these are the people that just sort of chase the pump. So let's see if we get a bounce here, because these are the same levels we bounced at not too long ago. Hopefully we do. Let's look at I wonder what the RSI looks like on the 1 hour. It probably looks pretty ridiculous, actually. Sorry, I clicked on something else. Our strategy. Yeah, it's currently oversold. Bitcoin's currently oversold here on the 1 hour. The 4 hour, yeah, it's oversold as well. So it's pretty low on the daily. Yeah, oversold on the daily. On the weekly, it's not. On the weekly, it's not oversold. On the weekly, we're still at 50, which is still pretty high. So on the monthly, we are still overbought almost. So on the monthly, we're still overbought technically. So I would say, one of the things we like to look at is our log of the price over the 20-week SMA. Let me switch this over to the index here. Everyone likes to say this time is different, right? It's not, okay? Same thing. Same thing. Each time we come up to the extension from the 20-week SMA, it's diminished each time, okay? 1 here, 2 in that cycle, 1 here. And we already had a brief double peak here. My guess is we come back up later on. Maybe if we sort of like draw this out, maybe it does something like that. I don't know. Comes down for a while, then maybe comes back up later on and does something like that. But regardless, Bitcoin is not doing anything it hasn't already done before. If anything, as we have said all along, it is diminished, right? And again, this indicator, again, is just the natural log of the price over the 20-week SMA. Okay, so keep that in mind. I want to show you guys another indicator we haven't talked about in a while. So we're going to put on the regression band first, okay? And note that we did not have any weekly closes yet in the upper regression band. So everyone was telling me it was going to break. And again, I would agree. I mean, one day it could easily break because it's a fit to only 3 data points. But so far, it's did a pretty damn good job of being our resistance there. But if we go look at what am I looking for? The log of the price over the fair value. Okay, so look at this chart. We're going to look at it on the daily time frame here. So look at this chart. So you might wonder what this is. It's basically just looking at the price compared here to the fair value. So let's look at this trend line. Okay, so from the first peak in 2011 to the second one in 2013, we're sort of just going to try to sort of connect them. Okay, so you see diminished extension from the fair value regression line, diminished extension here, or sorry, 1 diminished extension, diminished extension. If we keep going over, right, hasn't done anything. It hasn't, it really isn't doing anything that is out of the ordinary. So we didn't even make it there. Obviously there's some uncertainty, but even if we did something like this, and let's say we go slightly over it, because again, this you could easily move this and argue that it's, because it's currently coming in below this one, something like that. I think it's possible. I don't know. But so far, if the argument was that bull market was different than anything we'd ever seen, hey, it didn't even make it. It didn't even make it to this line. But again, you could argue that, well, the prior one didn't make it if you had just connected the first 2 points, right? So if you just look at that one, right, this one didn't make it. Trying to connect all 3, it's kind of hard to, because they don't really, it's not a perfect match, right? It's not a perfect match by any means, but you can see there we have it connected. We didn't even make it. And in order to have made it, we would have had to go up, probably another $20,000 or $30,000, okay, in order to make it. If you're not sure of where we would have to go today to make it there, let's see. Well, let me figure out what this was again. So it's the log of the price over the fair value. So the natural log of the price over the fair value. Okay, so let's figure out what that would be. So we're just going to go to Wolfram, okay, and we're going to take the price. We're solving for the price. We're going to set this equal to, let's say we're going to set it equal to 1.5. 1.5. So the log of the price over the fair value. So the log of the price over the fair value, we'll set that in a second, equals 1.5. Now you might say, well, then what's the fair value? Well, again, the fair value is just the wherever the logarithmic regression line is, which right now is pretty low. According to this, it's at 13.5K. Again, I don't think we're ever going back to 13.5K. It's moving up relatively quickly. By the end of the year, the fair value will be 20K. And it's just going to continue to move up monotonically. So let's just say 13.5. So where would that put us in terms of the price? And actually, maybe did I do this right? Yeah, I don't think I did this right, because that's a 60K, which we already obviously went above. I'll have to look at let me see, 1.49, is that 1.49? The fair value, maybe the fair value was, it could be that I used the upper limit there, which would be 20. Yeah, my guess is I use this line. I use this upper line as sort of like our upper limit there. So that would put it, I mean, in order to reach it, we'd have to go to 90K. We'd have to go to 90K. For us to come back up to whatever this line is that I drew, we'd have to go to 90K. But anyways, we also can look at our regression rainbow and note that, hey guys, we still didn't pass it. I mean, we said there's a decent chance we don't, right? I mean, same line here. Okay, so this was our accumulation window for the cycle here. We had a little bit more volatility this cycle. Note that it was the same accumulation window as this one. And we came down to this one and up to that one, and we're about to come back down to it. So you can see that if we come back down to it, where would that correspond to? What price would that correspond to if we were to get a bounce off of that level? It would correspond to 39,312. So if we were to go to 39,312, we'd be going back to that level, which is where we sort of held as resistance over here. Again, these are just lines on a chart, but it sort of just helps you gauge where we could be in the grand scheme of this cycle. All right, guys. Maybe that'll wrap it up. I think we covered most of the different indicators. So if you guys like the content and you wanna be here for the market cycle, you want to ride through the ups and the downs, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, check out the Telegram channel. Remember, if you want to join the Telegram channel, I will post it in the chat. We have over 38,000 people, so check that out. And remember to check out the sale on the premium list. You guys can find a link to that in the description below if you want to know how I'm navigating these markets. I also have a Twitter. I don't know if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, but I'm pretty active on Twitter recently because I like interacting with the people, posting nonsense. So if you guys want to follow me there, I'll post it in the chat. Otherwise, you guys can go ahead and leave. All right, guys, that'll wrap it up. Oh yeah, if you guys do have ADA and you want to earn interest on it, check out the ITC stake pool. Check it out. You can go earn interest on your ADA. We have more stake pools coming with other coins, hopefully relatively soon. That way, even when the market pulls back, you're still earning money just through interest. Okay, there's a lot of different ways you can do that through DeFi and through centralized finance. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Definitely subscribe. Let's go for 400,000 subscribers, and I'll see you next time. Bye.